I wanted to talk about how words get taken and destroyed. So C.S. Lewis, he talked a lot about, well, I don't know about a lot, but he pointed out how um, words, they get their meanings change. And he brought up, I believe it was um, the term gentleman and I don't remember if it was bastard or I think it was bastard. He said that man is a gentleman and a bastard. And no, it probably wasn't bastard, but it was probably, I don't know. It doesn't matter. So there were two terms that were specific. One, gentleman meant he owned land. Two, and if I remember correct, and I could be off on this, I probably should have looked it up before I started this, but the concept is the same. Two, the second one was a degrading term, and bastard would be he didn't know his parents or didn't have a legitimate father or something like that. I don't remember the actual definition, the precise definition. I got the gist of it, but born out of wedlock. I think that's the precise definition of bastard. But he so you have two terms that are they're articulate, but they aren't the same. Like one thing, gentleman. The term gentleman turned into someone. It went from someone who owns land to someone who is chivalrous and someone who is polite and it slowly morphed. And so you could no longer call someone a gentleman while calling them a bastard, because gentleman became a term for goodness and a term for niceness and a term for correctness, and bastard became a curse word that was a term for bad and wrong or whatever. And so he pointed out how words change, and that's pretty interesting. But it's also, it happens now. The one that drives me crazy is you have people who bring up this abortion debate, right? And you'll be talking about abortion and you'll be discussing with them, and they'll be like, they will say, yeah, but 95% of spontaneous abortions happen in this time frame. And you'll be talking about abortion, and then they'll bring in spontaneous abortion. Now, spontaneous abortion is a term that's accepted in the medical community, but it's a wrong term. So if you look up the definition for abortion, abortion means the deliberate termination of the fetus, of the baby. And I look me up on that. That's close enough. I don't remember the exact words word for word, but so it's a deliberate termination. Now, spontaneous abortion, that's a synonym for miscarriage. And a miscarriage is when the baby doesn't survive. When you throw the word spontaneous in front of abortion, you're supposed to not remember that abortion means deliberate termination. And so it's a way of slyly adding in, and it's a dishonest way of adding of making the term abortion seem less harsh, because a miscarriage is not anybody's fault. A miscarriage is a tragedy. And it's like they're taking this term miscarriage and they're using spontaneous abortion to describe it. But the only reason they're doing that is because it makes the term abortion more familiar and less impactful and less deliberate. And it makes people think, oh, but those women aren't at fault because spontaneous abortions are just sad, which is true. It is true. But abortion has nothing to do with spontaneity. It's deliberate. It's when you kill the child. And so that's one that just drives me crazy. You see it with social justice. Social justice. Justice is a term that refers to being correct. If somebody does a wrong, they get punished. If somebody, so it's a very, very correct term. How do you say it in a general way? Justice is, it is not just for you to be punished for someone else's wrongdoing. But when you say social justice, that's exactly what that's doing, is it's punishing you for the social group that you're in. It's really wrong. It's very wrong. And the fact that, I mean, depending on who you're talking to, some people will be like, some people say, I gotta say, stop saying be like. Some people will say social justice warrior as a smear, as a something degrading, and other people will say social justice warrior as a badge of honor, as something that they aspire to. And so context matters in this, but the principle is the same. When you try and change the definitions of words, there's usually motivation that's not honest behind it. Now, when there's not a vocabulary to account for the idea you're trying to get across, that's not changing a definition of word, that's creating new words. But for instance, spontaneous abortion, you're changing the word miscarriage to normalize the word abortion through the term spontaneous abortion. It's just wrong. Now, the next thing that I would point out is how, I mean, again, I mentioned it before, but Anti-Fragile, the book is describing a concept that I don't think it has a different definition. So fragile is something that breaks under stress. Anti-fragile, most people would think of as robust or durable. That's not the exact idea he's trying to get across. Anti-fragile means something that gets stronger under stress. Durable does not have that connotation. There's no reference to improving quality or improving strength. Same with robust. There's no reference to becoming better or stronger. But anti-fragile is the process of getting better through the stressing. And that's where Taleb, he points out a good the nuance there. Another thing that's interesting is when you think of the colors that we have available to us, we see these colors and we can tell the difference between blue and teal. We can tell the difference between orange and burnt orange. I don't know whether the thing that I didn't know, but colors, if you read like Homer, the Odyssey by Homer, if you read some of these old books, they don't have colors in them because colors weren't defined. And that makes sense. We have them defined today because we have screens, we have printing, we have different ways to the having color is commonplace. Having a consistent color is commonplace. The paint that you use, you can go to the store and see different colors, and it doesn't matter if you're in Canada, it doesn't matter if you're in Spain, it doesn't matter if you're in New York, it doesn't matter if you're in Timbuktu. The colors that you see, they're all going to be the same, relatively close. Maybe eggshell white and pearl white and I don't know, whatever. But colors before 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, they describe things by saying the orange of the sunset as the sun dips into the sea. And it's very poetic, and it's very like it describes a scenery, so you can get a picture in your idea. But like, and I used the color there. I said the orange, but they don't specify that clearly because there weren't words. They didn't have words for those colors. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because there are two different things. There's changing of definitions for hiding or confusing truth, and that's wrong. There's clarifying definitions for identifying and for identifying truth and being clear, and that's not wrong. When someone changes a definition for their profit or their benefit, that's something that it should pull up a red flag immediately for you and say, okay, why is this person doing this? You see that with like racism. Racism, as I was growing up, it always meant when you judge someone based off of their race in a negative way, or you discriminate against someone based off of race. Nowadays, it's taught in different schools and it's taught in different colleges. Racism is, it's taught a bunch of different ways, but one of the common ones that I've heard is it's the acquisition of power to be used against those who don't have power, or something stupid like that. It's all based around power, and that's why you have these people who completely honestly in their own minds, the way that they've defined it, they say you can't have a class that is what's the term, discriminated against, underclass, I don't know, it's, you can't have a, man, I don't know the right words for how they're mean to each other. Basically, you can't have black people be racist because a black person is they don't have the power that a white person has, or something like that, and it's stupid. People are people. You have good people and bad people everywhere, and that's when you frame the world by these very strict and redefined definitions, it opens you up to having huge blind spots. It opens you up to having huge problems with viewing reality, and that's just it's a fact of life. That's why it's always good to continue learning, continue your education. Don't let and I'm not talking about like necessarily schooling. I'm not against schooling, but I'm talking about learning as a person, understanding the world around you. It's really good to see people who are trying to understand things, whether that's through books, whether that's through just looking at how the world works, how machinery works, how skills work, whatever it is. Don't be a dullard. Don't be a person who's not. I probably used dullard wrong, but I like the word. But don't be a person that's not going to. Don't be a person that's going to just do what they know and be closed-minded to everything else. Rock the party.